Steve Pruitt into the picture as well, former Democratic staff director of the House Committee on the Budget, and is currently a senior partner at Watts Partners. You know, Nathan was talking about the fact that the mood is bad. He didn't see any silver lining in it, but some pundits that I've been listening to say the fact that the meeting went 90 minutes, is that a good sign at all?
Well, it's a good sign that they're talking. That's been one of the missing ingredients all along here, that there's really been no communications. It's been political shots across each other's bow. The more dangerous situation, though, is the fact that because I believe the Republicans don't have any bargaining room at this point, they've talked themselves into a corner, there's very little that the Democrats are able to do to appease them now.
Such a frustrating situation to Americans that are watching. The government is in a standstill, and they're essentially holding the debt ceiling as hostage, which ultimately affects the rest of the world. Nathan and Steve, I want you to take a listen to this, this sound that we have from Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi. They spoke just after the meeting came out at the White House. Take a listen, guys.
We have the debt ceiling staring us in the face. I thought that they were concerned about the long-term fiscal affairs of this country. And we said we are too.
They wanted to shut down government. They think that that has a purpose for them, and we know what that is. They want to overturn the Affordable Care Act. That's not going to happen. And frankly, that's not what our Constitution had in mind.
Steve, it's Nathan here at the White House. Just want to ask you a question. It's not you personally, but you kind of get it that America looks kind of ridiculous in the world right now, that, you know, they're always talking about promoting democracy around the world, but they can't even get it together in their own backyard. What do you say to that?
No, I think when you look at this from the world perspective, the U.S. not being able to handle just the fundamentals of operating government, funding government, and then dealing with policy questions in a reasonable way. I mean, you look at other parts of the world where there are fist fights. I just think at this juncture, we're going to see more of that in the U.S., and we're going to see more disruption. And unfortunately, I'm not optimistic that we're going to get to the point where they're going to raise the debt ceiling by October 17th.
Nathan, I want to ask you something. You and I have talked about this quite a bit, and a lot of this is about the Republicans, for lack of a better word, embarrassing the president. At the same time, the president's working on trying to embarrass the Republicans as well. Who's winning here, you think?
Well, I think whenever the president can look presidential and point the finger at Congress, that actually works. And I think there's one thing on his side here. Is that the healthcare legislation, Obamacare, passed through the Congress. It was held up mostly by the U.S. Supreme Court, despite huge amounts of pressure from states and Republicans. And also, there was, let's not forget it, a presidential election in between as well. So he's saying, look, why are we fighting over this? Surely you can amend a bill if you can, and you can't. So basically, he feels that the Republicans are holding the government hostage. And also, I think, on a week where Obamacare is launched to Americans, and we saw 3.5, 4 million people already go on these websites hunting for health insurance they don't have, that is a powerful argument too.
All right, I want you guys to take a look at this. This is a poll that was done earlier today. 56% of Americans believe that raising the debt ceiling would be a bad thing for the country. 53% blame Republicans in Congress, and 52% of Republicans who responded say that it would be a good thing for the country to fail to raise the debt ceiling. I don't have any way to describe this, Steve, but this is financial Armageddon. I mean, I don't understand how someone could just want to default on all the debt that you owe to the rest of the world, not let alone to yourself, and think this is a good thing for America.
Well, it's not a good thing for America. And I believe that as people get beyond the politics of this, more and more people, as we're already seeing in the Congress, are going to realize that enough is enough. And we will get the critical mass that's necessary. And ultimately, I think, despite the arguments that the Speaker's career is on the line right now, he's going to have to yield in some way to allow a legislative solution to move forward.
All right, I'm going to try to be positive and constructive. What does a solution look like? How can the Republicans walk out quietly from this bear trap they're in, so to speak?
Well, I'm not sure they can walk out quietly. They've made too much noise already.
The president has to give them a door open so they can get out. I mean, otherwise this whole thing doesn't work either.
Well, the only piece today that looks possible for inclusion in that would be the repeal of the medical device tax, which is sort of their last offer, if you will, that they put on the table. That has some legs. It has some bipartisan support. It could become an element in a final package that gets moved forward.
I want to give you credit for something.
It's my understanding.
Last week we talked a lot about whether or not we'd have the government close, and I was trying to be optimistic, and you said, Phil, they're going to close down the government. And of course you were right about that. So I'm going to put you on the spot again. We've got the debt ceiling debate coming up. How much should people, not only in America, but around the world, whether you're in China, Japan, or Europe, how much do we really need to worry about this? Because I get the sense that people don't really understand how big of a deal this is going to be if this thing totally blows up.
Well, I think we have to worry. Unfortunately, I believe we have to worry that we will breach the debt ceiling on October 17th, that there will not be a solution, and that it's going to take an additional downgrading of the U.S. credit rating.
That is just a scary thought.
That becomes real scary, and it's going to take that, I believe, for enough pressure to build for sane minds to surface in this discussion.
I cannot imagine anybody wanting us to even have that conversation whether or not the United States would have a lower debt rating, let alone default on loans. Steve Pruitt, thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you, Phil.